another phase, and that means another tier list. It's like a French thing, I don't know what it is really. But there has been a lot of changes to classes that we got to see the class set bonuses basically. And that is gonna shake up the meta a little bit, even though like the main thing that you should look at is, are the classes going to fare better with better gear? Because that's the main thing. They are gonna be able to preserve their old tier bonuses if they so choose. So the best way of predicting the meta really, aside from the new set bonuses, is looking at thinking who is going to benefit the most from better stats. And that takes us to the first one right here, and we're gonna look at it right now, the Assassination Rogue, who got no changes. Their tier 2 set bonus is actually pretty lame, their tier 2 set bonus sucks, but they can still get tier 2 and get the tier 1 set bonuses on it. And on the top 5 percentile of Molten Core, they are already the top dog. They scale excellently. I cannot really attest for the other rogue specs, but I do know for sure that Assassination is gonna completely destroy everything, and we have yet to hear about a nerf to them. So unless we get a new nerf from Wowhead, and they probably should, you know what, they probably should nerf them, but as long as that doesn't happen, and it didn't happen yet, they are gonna go to S. They are easily going to be the top 3 DPSers on Phase 5. We have already seen it on the PTR, and it is frankly disgusting. Even a crappy rogue is doing 3k DPS now. Of course, we got the Arcane Mage. The Arcane Mage is gonna remain a meme. They did get a better seed set bonus, but that's not gonna change anything. The spec is broken. They kinda tried to make it work in Phase 1 and they gave up on it. It's still a meme. Then we got the Boomkin. The Boomkin is another one of those casters that is gonna benefit from getting more gear, because they have hit problems even to this day after getting full best in slot. They have to do many sacrifices to get to the hit cap even with the rune. And in turn, I think they are gonna do a lot better in Phase 5. We might even see them mismatch a couple actual tier 1 pieces with hit on them when the tier 2 pieces with hit on them, because they are different pieces. That's something they might do. I am not a theory crafter, that's a question for Classic Go. But I do know for a fact that they are gonna go up a little bit on the charts, and that means they are gonna go from a mediocre B spec into a pretty acceptable A spec, and that's as good as they are gonna get. Boomkins suck at complaining. What do I tell you every video? Complain on Twitter and get your class buffed. They suck at complaining. They are too polite. They are like, oh, frankly, I disagree. I think we should get a buff, but it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't want to do it. You know what? Forget I even mentioned something. They are too nice. They are too nice, and that's why they do not get any buffs. So they are gonna stay there. Elemental Shaman got several key buffs. The most important one is that their Elemental Overload, a 50% chance, you know how it works. They got a 50% chance every spell of getting the same spell again, but like half the damage or something. All of their procs are also now going to proc off their Overload procs. And that in turn means that they are gonna get 50% more procs. Having that said, the Elemental Shaman is not exactly a super hard scaler, but I think they are gonna become a little better than before. They are still gonna remain a very middle of the road spec. I would say they are gonna be a B tier, a very high B tier. Shamans are super important for the utility anyway. I do not think they are gonna have a hard time getting in a group whatever they do. But if you wanna top the midders, Elemental is not gonna be the way to go. That's gonna be Enhancement. Enhancement remains a very stupid spec. Under 2 set is an improvement, so they also got that going for them. The only concern for the top shamans in the game is gonna be that they are doing stupid threat and it's only getting stupider. And depending on your tank, depending on the guild, they might have to actually hold back. Even though they are not the most DPS, they are still gonna be doing like an insane amount of threat, and that could be a problem. But I would say they are still S tier. Of course, their utility also bumps them up. Everybody wants totems. Next we got the Feral Druid. The Feral Druid is actually giving free hit to the raid with their tier 1 set bonus. It is doing insane damage. They got Sulfuras, of course. It is not a rare sight to see a cat doing 2500 or even 3k damage in Molten Core right now. It's one of those things where they could do the same damage they do now in Blackwing Lair and they will still be super strong. Of course, they got really good utility. The Mangold, the global Wind Fury for the whole raid, leader of the pack, they got everything. And they are only gonna get better because they scale very well too. It's not that they do not scale. I am saying they are already insane and they are gonna get, even if it's not that much better, they are still gonna be insane. So that's an easy S tier. Now the Fire Mage and their tier 2 is actually absolutely bonkers. Their Fireball is gonna do a dot for 40% of the total total damage, and their Pyroblast is gonna do 20% more damage on top of that, so they were already the hardest scaling class in the game, after the Warrior of course, but they are still a super exponential, ridiculous class. The more gear they get, the more crit and spell power they get, the more it scales of itself. It's like a positive feedback loop, very similar to the Warrior, and they are gonna be able to stack even more crit now, and they are gonna have a better set on top of that, and on top of that, their Pyroblast hitting 20% harder, it is more than 20% because that means the ignites are gonna roll for higher, and that's also gonna exponentially increase them even more. All I am trying to say, Fire Mage is gonna destroy. I would be surprised if they are not at least the second best DPS in the game. It is always a good bet to go Fire Mage. Next up is gonna be the Frost Mage. They got a new set in Sol Gorov. I really like the approach of, okay, we're not gonna make a Frost Mage set in tier 2, but there's this set in Sol Gorov that is pretty good. They are essentially gonna get 15% shatter, so that's free crit for free. Their Frostbolt is gonna do 75% more damage, and their crits are gonna hit 50% harder on the unused trinket that they're gonna get on the set 2. So they are still not gonna be amazing, they are still not gonna be the greatest out there, but they are gonna be now a pretty decent spec. I mean, they should be like pretty much on par with the Boomkin or so, and maybe a little better. So if you prefer playing Frost, and a lot of people like playing Frost more than Fire, I mean, you're gonna have a great chance now at playing it, and nobody's gonna complain that they got a Frost Mage anymore. That's the greatest part you gotta take away from this. People are gonna look at you and they are gonna think, that is an okay fella. That is a pretty acceptable man right there. And that's better than most people. Next up is the Hunter. I don't know why we got the Hunter as an entire class instead of specs, but a little roundup here. Survival and Marksmanship are going neck and neck. They are getting a nerf on Lone Wolf, so I think Marksmanship is gonna take a little bit of an L next phase. They reverted the lock and load nerf, people complaining of, so they reverted the nerf. It's all about the strategic complaining on Twitter, but sadly Hunters do not scale very well. Melee Hunters are not doing much better, although they still have the tier 1 set that gives you free hit. I think it's not gonna matter in POGs or casual raids, but if you're in a top level guild that wants to play around that and get people just 1% below the cap, maybe that could work. Overall, I would say the Hunter is gonna be a decent spec. It's gonna be a pretty middle of the road spec. It's gonna go down a notch this tier, but it's never too late to go to Twitter. I mean, you reverted one nerf. I mean, if you try a little harder, maybe you can get Lone Wolf back. Oh yeah, Beastmaster is not doing so hot. Maybe you can complain about that too, I guess. Their Beastmaster is set on Sol Gorov is actually really cool. So I actually would like it if they buff Beastmastery. I would like to see people using the Sol Gorov sets. Most of them suck. Then we got the big boy, the Warrior. Of course, Arms is out of the question. Arms is a PvP spec and it didn't get any PvE support in Sol, so it's still gonna suck. Two-handed Fury got a little closer to dual wield, but it's still not gonna be the way to go. I didn't actually bother matting out Gladiator or taking a look at it at all, but people do tell me, and that might be something we have to visit in a video later on. People do swear by me that Gladiator is doing a lot of damage now. Of course, the big boy, the one that you wanna talk about right now, is Dual Wield Fury, and Dual Wield Fury is gonna get really nasty. They got a nerf on their tier 1 set, and that is an issue because they are losing 5% crit and 5% damage, but their new set is gonna reset their Bloodthirst when they slam. Of course, the Warrior on top of all of that is one of the most exponential classes in the game. They get insane value off of crit because they got Deep Wounds and they got Impale. They generate more rage the more damage they do, and that means, on top of everything, that they are well on track to be top dog on Blackwing Lair. We are already seeing several Warriors on the top 10 on Molten Core. We got, I think, 3 Warriors on the top 1, 2, and 3, actually, currently. And they are only gonna get better every phase. So as long as we do not get a nerf, the Warrior is definitely gonna be top tier. I got no question about it. Warrior for president. Go Warriors. Next up is the Retribution Paladin. I will be honest with you, I am not the person to ask about Retribution Paladins. I still got no freaking idea how they work, but they do tell me that they are still gonna go for the tier 1 set bonus this phase. The Red Paladin is a sneaky boy because they are very high up in the charts actually, and nobody seems to notice them. And they are gonna remain a very good spec. So we are gonna put them on A, and that's pretty respectable, taking how they came from the previous phases to this. Of course, Paladins got great utility too, so they got that going on for them, but they are no longer a meme. I think that's something to be happy about. Next up, we got the Shadow Priest. The Shadow Priest did not receive any major buffs this patch. They are still doing absolute crap damage. They also nerfed their healing. That's the Vampiric Embrace. They nerfed it to the ground. I think they cut it in half essentially. Why, you might ask? Well, I don't know. I don't think Kagren knows. They just felt like it. They were already doing terrible damage. Of course, they still generate mana and they are very important for speedrunners. They got the dispels. It's not that they are useless, but they are not good. So we're gonna put them in B, and I am very sad. This is by far the spec I am the saddest about. Like, why do you have to bully them out of the meta? Like, why do you have to nerf the healing? That's the only thing they had. And finally, the Warlock. First of all, we should discard Demonology is not a thing. Demonology freaking sucks. The Fire Warlock is also not getting amazing support this phase. They are getting a little better. They moved a couple runes around. The main thing that is gonna change is that the Affliction Warlock is no longer gonna have to sacrifice damage to take utility runes, because once again they move the runes over, and they are doing good damage and they do scale pretty decently, and that means, all things considered, that they are gonna move up a notch too, and they are gonna go straight on A. I am very sad about the Warlock. I still miss the Fire Warlock dream, but I do not think it's gonna happen because they didn't even get a set, neither in Solgorov or Tier 2. They kinda forgot about it. But yes, that's gonna be pretty much it. Is this less balanced than Phase 4? I would say a little, yeah. I would say this is a little less even than in Phase 4. But you know what? When life gives you lemons, subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.